Republicans and Democrats have promised us the world. Medicare for all, no child left behind, equity, safer streets, and police reform, an end to the housing crisis, a more peaceful world, and a sound economy. Government is the barrier to all of these things. If you're sick of the lies, fancy slogans, and broken promises, then join us in the Libertarian Party and help bring a real free market to the U.S. and help set every individual free. LP.org. That's LP.org. Hello, and welcome back to the Liberty Blues Network. I'm Shawn Osborne. Please take the time, if you like what you hear today, to subscribe to the podcast, like it, leave a comment, rate and review wherever you listen, whatever it's called. Try to do that. It helps out with the algorithms. It'd be much appreciated. So joining me again today is Ted Brown from Texas. He's running for Senate. And, there's the incumbent just got over, taken out by a MAGA guy. So let's talk about that a bit.
Well, hi, Shawn. Thanks for having me on. As you mentioned, I'm Ted Brown, and I'm running for U.S. Senate as the Libertarian candidate. And there's a very interesting race going on between with the two major parties. So there was a runoff in the Republican Party, and Ken Paxton, who's our corrupt Attorney General, defeated Senator John Cornyn, who's been in office for 24 years, in the primary by like an almost 2-to-1 margin after Paxton was endorsed by Trump. He's a MAGA warrior, but he is also a corrupt official here in Texas. He was impeached by his own Republican state house, even though he was acquitted in the Senate. It was kind of a rigged trial. And he's been accused of other crimes. It was a big settlement for him. He was apparently abused some of his employees, and taxpayers are on the hook for about $6 million. And he had his mistress on one of his contributors' payrolls. So there's just all kinds of stuff going back years. And this guy became wealthy in public office. There's just so much ammo. And Senator Cornyn used it against him in the primary without success. But the Democrats are going to be picking up the same thing on behalf of James Talarico, the now famous Democrat, who's become quite a young celebrity as well nationwide.
What's his policies like?
Well, he's a very liberal Democrat, but he's also, from my point of view, he's very good on civil liberties issues and all. But of course, he's never opened an economics book. But neither is Paxton, as far as I know. Most major party guys, if they have, they ignore what's in there, or they just look at the wrong chapter. But the point is, at the end of the day, you're talking about big government. But from a trustworthiness point of view, Talarico is a lot better than Paxton. But that's certainly something I would say about him. Overall, though, obviously we need liberty. We need liberty in this race, and that's why I'm here, is to provide the libertarian alternative. We need less government across the board, personal freedom, economic freedom, and certainly anti-war, a non-interventionist foreign policy. That things keep getting worse in that category all the time with the Trump administration. So that's one of my major issues right there.
Yeah, I assume Paxton's going to be all in for just giving money to Israel, and I don't know. Do you know about this thing that Thomas Massey was talking about, voting against that thing, combining our military with Israel's?
Oh yeah, I just posted something about that. I was looking for an actual media article about that, and I found one, and I posted it on Facebook and X, Twitter, that I'm on. And it appears that there's Section 224 of the National Defense Authorization Act that they're proposing, that's in the works right now, is to integrate the U.S. and Israeli militaries. They say it's on logistics, and we do it with other countries too, but it can't possibly be to this extent. And it's really just this giving over of all of U.S. policy to a foreign government. And I mean, that's just, we shouldn't do that with anyone. It's our military, our intelligence services, our logistics, and all that. And I mean, just like other countries shouldn't send theirs somewhere else, we shouldn't be doing that either. It's both in our best interest and, frankly, Israel's best interest to have their own military. You can't have another country being involved in running your military. So it's just a total national security threat to this country, and obviously probably a military threat too in some ways, because that's going to bring more people hating us.
Yeah, I was going to crack a joke about just making Israel the 51st state, but it seems like they've made Israel the capital.
It seems like it. It seems like it. That's what politicians have been saying that for decades. That Israel's really running things because they control by contributions most of the Congress. They, as we saw with that Thomas Massie race, the massive amount of contributions financed by pro-Israel billionaires like Miriam Adelson, and there were a couple other people I hadn't heard of that were financing the Galrine campaign against Massie. I mean, it was just totally one-sided in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that propaganda really does work. I can't remember where I read it, but somebody was talking about the definition of propaganda. It's just say something and keep repeating it, and that's all they did was just repeat this garbage about him and Israel propaganda, and they got what they wanted. Well, at least for now. I mean, I hope a good libertarian comes in and either spoils the hell out of the race for him or wins, but.
Well, there is a libertarian trying to get on the ballot there now in Kentucky in that district, a guy named Todd, and I think there's an independent also. They want to, and of course there's a Democrat. So hopefully they won't be able to keep that seat, but it is a heavily red district. People vote the tribe, it seems, most of the time, unfortunately. That's what the problem that I and other libertarians have, is it's really hard to break through that with the D's and R's just voting for the, their tribal leaders.
Yeah, I think it's good for us to try different strategies and things like that. So, I mean, sometimes we have to be a spoiler. Sometimes maybe if there's a candidate who's just way better or something like that, we maybe don't run somebody against it. I do want to get the guy on there. I'm working on it, the one that's going to run for Massey's seat, because
right, that's the one we were talking about.
Yeah, I want to get them on there and get him as much publicity as possible. And like obviously, I think probably more people would vote for you in Texas who maybe would have voted another way, maybe people who don't like what Trump's doing with Israel and stuff like that, because they might be conservative and they might get along with that. At the same time, I believe, since you're good with civil liberties, there's probably some people that would vote for you because they realize maybe a Democrat's not going to win in Texas. I don't know if that's the truth. Seeing I don't live there, but do you see it that way?
Well, the Democrats have done terrible in Texas. This is the biggest dry spell in the whole country. They haven't won a statewide office since 1994, and they haven't won a Senate seat since 1988 with Lloyd Benson, who was the Democratic vice presidential candidate way back then. So the Democrats have been in the wilderness. The Republicans have been ahead like plus 20 at some points along the way. They just became totally dominant. But now the polls are really close, both in the Senate race and in the governor's race. Surprisingly enough, Governor Greg Abbott's running for a fourth term. Amazingly enough, no one's ever done that before.
Really?
And his shelf life is pretty much finished. And it just seems like people are sick and tired of some of these Republicans that have been in office forever, and things are still screwed up. I mean, Texas does have a great economy compared to the rest of the country, but socially, with all their culture wars stuff, is really offensive. And that's what they're getting more known for than being like a beacon of economic liberty. They're known as the culture wars place.
Yeah, I wish people would lay off the culture war, stop using government, man. It just drives me nuts because, as a libertarian, some of us are, we live our life one way, more as a conservative or more as a liberal.
Mm-hmm.
But, we don't. The idea that anybody should just be able to live their life the way that they want. That's the libertarian view.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people realize that. I think they think of us as, some people look at us as, Republicans that smoke weed, or, or as, all these different tropes that they have for us. I don't think enough people actually take the time to actually learn what the hell's going on.
Right, exactly. That's a big problem. There's low information voters, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them,
Mhm.
and there's also attention deficit democracy, is um, what James Bovard, the author, used to say about it. So it's like what are you going to do? I mean, that's why libertarians need to run for office. And I've said this for years: is in elections, even if we don't, if we're the third wheel or whatever, is because that's the only time people even remotely are interested in politics, is during like election years and in the fall of election years. And if we aren't there, if we aren't running candidates, no one's going to know there's any alternative to these terrible policies that are going on in Washington or at your, state capital.
Yeah. So what's your message? I mean, I got a pretty decent idea, but we want a good sound clip for you.
Sure.
What's your stances on, like, say, what's going on with the Straits of Hormuz and Iran and all that stuff, and
Oh.
and fearing so much that Iran's going to get the nuke that they've been a week away from for 30 years.
Oh, what a bunch of BS. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, they were saying that 30 years ago. I mean, Netanyahu's the only one that's been saying that. And of course, whatever he says goes, it seems. But
Yeah.
no, it's a war of aggression. I mean, Trump attacked Israel. I mean, Trump attacked Iran and killed those little schoolgirls to start with. And they've just been blowing up civilian targets, infrastructure, and all that stuff, along with some military, I think. And then Iran responds. But the only reason they're able to attack us over there is because we have so many military bases surrounding their country. They've been there
Right.
for so long, and it's like what if Iran had military bases in the Bahamas and in Canada and in Mexico? We would feel kind of uncomfortable too. And yet
Mhm.
the U.S. just is so arrogant. We figure we just put our bases anywhere, and anybody that objects is like a terrorist or an insurgent or whatever the case may be. But we should not have any bases in the Middle East. We should withdraw from that area completely. We should not be like poking Iran. We should never. Trump should never have attacked Iran like that. We need to withdraw, close our military bases, withdraw all our troops from the Middle East, stop any kind of financial or military aid to any country in the Middle East, not just the one you're thinking of, and the. We just shouldn't be involved. Our involvement's been a disaster. We've like stoked every kind of problem in the Middle East for the last like 75 years or something. It's crazy, just with the
Mhm.
goal of supporting Israel, but B, also making sure we have oil. The oil is always at the top of a larger number of people's lists, I think, than the political support for another country. It's that oil. Wherever there's oil, those people are in danger that the U.S. is going to come in there and start, blowing things up and trying to get control. But now Trump probably never heard of the Strait of Hormuz until this happened. It was open. There was
Right.
no problems, and now his goal is to get it open again. Well, just stop the whole darn thing. Just get out of there, and they'll probably reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And
Yeah.
but Iran doesn't agree to anything that Trump wants. Trump doesn't agree to anything Iran wants. If he's even negotiating with anybody, is he really negotiating with anyone, or is he making it up? I put out a meme the other day where it shows Trump like he's on his phone in the Oval Office, and I've got like these Iranian college kids in the dorm talking to him and laughing, like they're the ones that he's negotiating with. Because is he really talking to anybody that has any authority? I have no idea. It's all in his mind. He seems to think he's like ended like 7 wars, he claims, and the people
Yeah.
involved had no idea he was even involved in it. He just claims he's settled a war between Cambodia and Thailand or Armenia and somebody. Nobody knows anything about it. He's like lives in his own mind. He's probably senile and nuts. What can you do?
Definitely a megalomaniac. That's for damn
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah. It's like it's just everything for Trump.
Yeah. It's I mean, I understand why the America First kind of message rings home, but man, what they think of America First is, man, that's not even close to what is America First. I mean, to me, America First is leaving our money that we earn in our pockets,
Hmm.
trade with all these countries and make them our allies. I mean, if
Oh
we were
yeah.
only if we only didn't put sanctions on countries like Iran, they're not going to be hostile towards us. I mean, yeah, they might have a leadership that we don't like, but that's not on us. I
Right.
I think of like the tourism the Middle East could have. They'd make
Mhm.
more money on tourism than oil if it wasn't such a shit show over there with people blowing each other up and
Yeah.
stirring the pot with them all.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Well, this thing with sanctions, I mean, sanctions are an act of war, blockades are an act of war. Same thing with Cuba. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing before with Venezuela. I mean, Trump just, whatever he wants to do, he thinks he can just get away with.
Yeah, what I read yesterday a little bit here and there that I mean I know they're trying to put an arrest warrant out for Raul Castro and stuff like this,
Oh,
all this ridiculous crap. But
yeah.
what else are they doing over there in Cuba that you know about,
Well, we've had
along
an
with the
embargo.
sanctions?
Well, we've had a trade embargo for the last 67 years, my whole life, more than my whole life. Before I was born, they started doing that. There's been this, obsession with Cuba by our foreign policy establishment because they embarrassed us by, having that revolution over there. And but now there's like a blockade of their ports. They're not getting in any oil or any supplies. They're starving over there. They have no energy. Sanctions are ramping up. They can't even they always were lending their doctors to like African countries, but now those countries have to expel those doctors because they're not allowed to have any connection because of sanctions with Cuban people, and it's terrible. It's just like a total act of war against Cuba. Of course, they have a terrible government, but so do like 100 other countries that we have perfectly normal relationships with. I say normalize relations with Cuba, end the embargo, end the blockade. Just have our founding fathers said, peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. And don't be hypocritical. Sure, we don't like their government. We don't like most of the government. Well, I sure don't like most of the governments in the world,
No.
and our own people, our own officials don't like a lot of them either. But they still do business with them.
Another thing that really sucks about it all is like, if we're messing with their economy, obviously we're making it harder on the Cuban people.
Hmm.
So when like say their socialist government fails and stuff like that, they can always point and say it wasn't because of our bad ideas, it was because of the imperialists.
Hmm.
And technically, they're not wrong in that sense because the imperialist mentality of the U.S. is making things worse on people. But
Hmm.
I think we need to let socialist countries fail on their own, and if they don't fail, I mean that's fine. They want to sell us cheap shit they've made in their country. Like even like some of it might even be high quality. If we can get things in here that's better for us. Then we got more money to invest in property and gold and silver or Bitcoin or
Hmm.
in your kids' education
Sure.
or on a vacation,
Sure,
right?
exactly. Yeah, just leave those guys alone, and yeah, if Americans could invest down there, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of us. I mean, like even after the Vietnam War, I mean, I know Vietnam still got a shitty government, but we have way better relations with them than we did.
Hmm.
Obviously, we're not bombing them, so there, Americans can go there safely on vacation. You know,
Hmm. Oh
they
yeah.
but we lost the war, and the world didn't come to an end. Communism didn't spread throughout the world like they said it was going to.
No, the domino effect. No,
Yeah.
definitely not. I mean, yeah, we have good relations with Vietnam. We trade with them. Weirdly, they make furniture over there that is shipped over here, which is an odd product for
Yeah.
there. But yeah, that's like a common item. And just like with China, there's
Mhm.
they have that business sector. They know they had to like do some capitalism like China did in order to prosper. Because the pure only North Korea really is sticking with the pure communism, it seems.
Yeah.
Any of the other communist countries that are left are like very very hybrid in that regard. They have the political control, but they've really loosened up a bit on the economic part of it.
Yeah, they could just turn from communist to more of a fascist idea, where the government has control over private industry and things like that. That's the way I perceive it.
Oh yeah, then they just like in those countries they pretend they're communist. Like the Chinese have Mao's picture up, and the Vietnamese have Ho Chi Minh's picture up, and all. But those leaders would not recognize anything that those countries are doing right now.
No, no. So, what are some other policies out there that you could deal with in the Senate that's driving you nuts?
Well, the big issue that just came up this year that I've gotten involved in is digital privacy. I hadn't even thought too much about that until more recently. And now there seems to be some sort of critical mass in the world, like in every country, the elites have come together to say, yep, we're going to have like social media bans for people under 16. We're going to have age verification laws. We're going to have central bank digital currency. We're going to have biometric IDs. We're going to have, all these, we're going to ban VPNs so people can't get away from our limitations here and everything. And what it's leading to is like everything being integrated, so we have no privacy whatsoever. Everything we do is going to be like a social credit system like they have in China. And they'll be able to cut off people's bank accounts, like you and me, when we're political dissidents, they can cut off our bank accounts. They have these kill switch on cars that's coming up where they can just decide, yeah, we don't like where you're driving to, and just cut off your engine. They're putting up these cameras everywhere, these flock cameras and CCTV cameras and license plate readers, wanting to like control to find out where everybody is at any one time. It just got to stop. And if we don't do this really fast this year and say no, 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 we're cooked. I mean, our privacy is gone. Within a few years, we'll be doomed. I mean, any dissent is going to be, especially, probably here later than most, but in Europe and other countries, they're doomed. There's no one's going to have any have any ability to dissent, or they'll be just wiped out financially and not allowed to rent apartments, or whatever they do in China, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really wild. I mean, I don't think people really realize. I mean, if your grandma gives you money, the government will know about it. You can't just hand somebody a 5-spot and they say, well, it's going to stop crime and human trafficking and all this stuff. I mean, ultimately, they're going to tax you on every penny that you get. Because, I mean, as it was, I believe, when Biden was putting together his tax program, and they were talking about taxing more like small incomes, and they were talking about anything over $600 a year.
Crazy.
$600 a year. I mean, shit, that won't buy you anything. That's not even a quarter of your rent here in Los Angeles.
No, it's bookus.
God forbid somebody make a little money and the parasite doesn't get their hands on it.
Oh, right, exactly. It's insane. And the other thing that the people were talking about recently is that Bank Secrecy Act, the one where they have to file those financial or those suspicious activity reports. The banks do have like a $10,000 or more financial transaction. And that figure hasn't been changed in over 50 years. It should be 100,000 if you're going to keep it. But basically, they find very little illegal activity. But they just have everybody's financial transactions on file, and they could harass people if they wanted to. And so it's just another example of a law that needs to be repealed, the Bank Secrecy Act. I don't mind if we miss a few people who are, laundering drug money to keep everybody's finances private.
Yeah. Just the whole nanny state. I mean, here in Los Angeles, they're trying to do the street cameras. They're pushing that again in some areas, stuff like that. And people, this will make it so much. No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
No, that make it safer.
You have the red light cameras too there.
Yeah. Just one thing after another that they're just going to track everything. It's. I would say it's worse than 1984.
Oh, it is because there was like that whole. Proletariat group there that really weren't bothered too much by the government, just the party members, the more elite people that had to follow all those rules and everything. This would be everybody.
Yeah. It's and I don't think enough people really realize that they the government leads with fear. Oh, we need this to protect you and protect you from this and all this other stuff, and it's just, man, it couldn't be any more horrifying to me.
It is, and they say the two that they use are protect the children, which is the popular one now, and of course national security always shows up as well. And of course crime fighting too. Well, human trafficking, that's another one. Yeah, crime fighting and human trafficking. Yeah, we can, which most of it is not really human trafficking. It's like sex workers who are adults, or something. But actually, with human trafficking, more of it's for labor around the world than it is for sexual reasons. Mm-hmm. Like servants and workers of various kinds are being trafficked in a lot of areas.
So when are they supposed to be voting on that kind of thing?
Oh man, well, there's so many bills that are being proposed. They have acronyms to them, like the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, and I forget which one is which on some of these. And then how they just put everything in the same bill.
Hmm.
Like, so they have like something they call a must-pass bill, like for financing military operations, like the National Defense Authorization Act. And so they want to. That's where they're going to put in this thing about coordinating our militaries with Israel's. That's Section 224, and this bill is going to be coming up. And they're going to be arguing about this bill and all the amendments and all the provisions for a long time. But then, right when it's like 2 days before, this is what they always do, like 2 days before the deadline, when it's going to expire, the old one's going to expire, and say, "Oh my God, we need our military spending, or we're doomed, and we only have like 1 day, and no one even can read this bill. The leadership just decides what the bill is, and they put like 10,000 pages in there, and they just don't get anybody a chance to read it. This is the kind of thing that Thomas Massey and Rand Paul have been complaining about for years."
Hmm.
And they just expect everybody to vote for it, and that's the kind of thing that I'm going there to prevent. First of all, they should be like legislating all year. They shouldn't have these deadlines where it's like an emergency. I don't like things to like show up as an emergency, because that means people aren't going to be thinking. They're not going to be, arguing properly or listening to reasonable arguments. They're just saying, "Oh my God, if we don't do it, we're doomed." That they just create that. They create these emergency situations all the time. The government's going to shut down. We're not going to have any military. We're not going to have anything. And it's their own fault for not passing these bills throughout the year. And it's also their fault for adding all these other extraneous items on that couldn't pass on their own. An interesting one came up. They have a farm bill that's proposed now. It passed the House, but hasn't passed the Senate. The farm bill is like all the agriculture programs and food stamps and all this stuff. And I got notification on one of I follow my hometown, Wheeling, West Virginia is my hometown. I follow their Facebook group. And they said, "Wait a minute, they're trying to ban dog racing." And that's one of the big tourist attractions. They have a big dog track there. And so there's some people are trying to slip in this farm bill to ban dog racing. So you got to watch out. Anything that can harm somebody might be slipped in without anybody knowing about it until the bill passes, like Nancy Pelosi said. And then you'll learn what's in it.
Yeah, that was I saw something about dog racing. I didn't catch the context of it. I didn't realize that's where they slipped it in. I mean, that is just ridiculous.
Hmm.
I mean, it's nuts because if you think about it, like when Trump first got into office, he said he was going to do all these things, do the Department of Education, and he had a majority
Hmm.
on his side. And instead of sitting down and doing all those executive orders, they could have said, "Okay, we're going to sit down." How about the president go sit down in there and say, "Okay, this is what I want. Pass a bill." You know, a paragraph. We're going to do
Yeah.
this. Sign it. Done. Sign it.
Yeah.
Done. Because he did it with the executive orders that Republicans thought they were such wins, but all it
Yeah.
takes is the next person to come in and undo them the way he undid Joe Biden's.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly right.
It's just utter lunacy that people actually can follow along with this garbage and think that that's actually going to do anything.
Well, they want him to take the heat. Like, for example, with those Doge cuts with Elon Musk last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Yeah.
proposing these cuts, and which were illegal because the money had been appropriated. And then, while they were proposing the cuts, there was a continuing resolution that was about to be passed 2 weeks later that just put all the funding back again at the same levels. It was all BS. The whole thing was absolute BS. And later, when congressmen like Massey and some of those were trying to like codify the Doge cuts, which is the way legislatively it should be done, whatever you think about them. It was rejected. No, Congress wasn't going to put themselves on record as cutting any spending, because all the special interest groups that oppose them. Let Trump take the heat, especially Elon Musk. Let him take the heat, for these. Oh, not us in Congress. No, we're not going to put it to any of our big donors.
No. And the other thing, like even when they made cuts, they were laying off like people working in national parks. I really don't think people working in national parks is part of the problem. You know what I mean?
No.
That's what they're cutting. And they wonder why there was backlash against it. When you're cutting things like that,
Yeah.
which I would rather them be run different, but I don't have a problem with park rangers. I've been to a lot of national parks. Those people do a lot of good. I enjoy talking to them. I would rather them stop sending money to Israel. I'd rather them stop dropping bombs all over the place. I'd rather
Oh, absolutely. They're
do
not
all
going to
this
stop
stuff,
that.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
Shawn, they're just not gonna stop that. But
uh,
they in fact that's one of the few things that a lot of Democrats and Republicans agree on is when they're going to like bomb the heck out of brown people in foreign countries. They just will vote for the appropriations. Right now a lot of the Democrats won't, but just to oppose Trump, it would be turned around if they were in power and their
oh yeah,
president was saying, let's do this. They'll say, oh yeah, sure. Most of them,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, like Obama. I mean, he really. I mean, I came to the Libertarian Party from the Democrats, and I haven't voted for a Democrat since the '90s. And
Hmm.
when Obama came around, I was hopeful with some of the things he said he was going to roll back what Obama
Yeah,
or what Bush did, but he didn't roll it back. He stepped on the gas.
yeah.
Once I mean, Republicans that think that the Democrats aren't going to use the same powers against them that Trump uses against the Democrats, they're delusional.
They are.
They're absolutely delusional. And that's
Yeah.
why they panic right now because they might lose the House or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, they're going to have some
So,
trouble there. But see, that's the thing. The Democrats, you can thank a couple of like moderate Democratic senators, like back in just before when the Democrats were still in control of Congress under Biden, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. Whatever you think of those two, they saved the filibuster. They
yeah,
refused to let the Democrats get rid of the filibuster. You can only imagine what we would have now if the Republicans didn't have a filibuster to
yeah,
worry about. I mean, they would just ram everything through. That's when they would probably, codify more of what Trump did because they know they can't now because of the filibuster in the
uh-huh.
Senate, and they would just run it right through, to keep these things in. Now, at least with the executive orders, you're right. The next president could, if they wanted to, overturn it with new executive orders. In my opinion, I'm against executive orders in general. That's like
Yeah, absolutely.
that's like ruling by decree, and we fought a revolution about that in
Right.
1776. Only the legislative branch can pass laws. So that's but again, at least by virtue of Trump having all these executive orders, they can be overturned, unlike laws that Congress passed.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it I mean, people think, I mean, I don't know, the really hardcore MAGA people really do look at it as like, he got voted in for this, but Obama got voted in for what he got voted in for, and they hated that, and they wanted people to fight against that. So, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
People don't have to go along just to get along. Yeah, I don't agree with that in the slightest bit, man. If he said he was going to be America first and stop wars, and he's bombing shit. He said he's going to release Epstein files, and kicking and screaming it took to get.
Oh man, we absolutely got to get those Epstein files out, and I just don't know why they aren't being like leaked by anybody. How no one leaked them to Julian Assange at WikiLeaks or something? Those guys must have just given up the ghost by this time. Why didn't anybody release all that? And Thomas Massey keeps promising to go on the floor of Congress and just name names.
I hope
Now's
he
as good a
does.
time as any, there, Tom.
Yeah, he might do it on his way out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But he has to do it from the floor of Congress, or else he could be charged with some kind of a, crime or something. But
Oh, really?
under the Constitution, whatever a member of Congress says on the floor, they're protected under the speech and debate clause, and it's phrased something to the effect of, "For anything they say in Congress, no member will be questioned in any other place." Is the phrasing, because they used to be taken to the Star Chamber. Members of the House of Commons used to be taken to the Star Chamber to be questioned about their political views. And also, James Madison said, "No, we're not going to have anything like that." It's like congressmen can say whatever they darn well please.
Yeah. Okay. I was unaware of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
like speaking of Thomas Massey, since he was ran out of there, I know he re-registered to run again in a couple of years, but
Mm-hmm.
slight possibility of him running for president. People are leaning, hoping that he. I don't know if he's planning on running as a Republican or as an independent. As somebody that's been in the Libertarian Party for a long time, do you hope somebody like him would come over and maybe run as a Libertarian, like Justin Amash came over?
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't run, but
Mm-hmm.
because I know some. I mean, I see it all over the place. Some people don't like Thomas Massey and say he's not Libertarian, he's a Republican. But I mean, so was Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, and people didn't have a problem with that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you fall on in that?
Well, Massey is a Republican, but he's probably the best member of Congress by far. even though he is mostly Republican, except for those few issues, because of the way he does things, the way he doesn't he won't compromise on some of these things where the his colleagues are just like saying, "Oh, we're cutting government," and but when they're really not, or they're just like doing some kind of obfuscation. They're like we were talking about earlier with some of those bills that have everything in them. Just him telling the truth on them is the most important thing he does there. But I'd say libertarians probably would agree with him about 80% of the time. But there's a lot of issues of ours that he never even takes positions on because they don't come up in Congress. So I'd like to hear what his views on, on some of these other civil liberties issues and all that don't come up very often. But I think he should run for the Republican nomination. I think there would be like an element that would want him, and not the MAGA people, certainly the kind of people that might have supported Ron Paul, that might have supported other candidates in the Republican Party in the past. For us, though, Justin Amash would be a much better candidate. He is much more libertarian, I think. And he stayed connected with us all this time, even though he won't run for office. He did run as a Republican for U.S. Senate in Michigan in 2024 and lost the primary. But he was explaining to us, he spoke at the national convention that just came up, why he did that, because it's almost impossible to have your votes counted as a third party candidate in Michigan because they have straight ticket voting and voting machines and all this stuff that make it difficult. But if he were to be our presidential candidate, that would be the whole country, and he would actually be able to get some attention because he's a former congressman and everything. So, and I think he is a libertarian mostly, unlike Massey. Even though Massey again is the best congressman, it's a really low bar. But Massey is by far the best congressman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'd never heard anything from either of them that made me really think that they weren't libertarians. I know they both lean on that more conservative end of libertarianism.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Amash is pro-life and things like that. I know that doesn't go well with a significant portion of the LP.
That's the only issue I've heard of on Amash that there might be some conflict about. Yeah.
And I don't know. So the future will be interesting at the very least.
Oh, it is. And I know for us, for libertarians, I know Joe Jorgensen has formed an exploratory committee. But, I think, we'll see who else is going to be interested. It's like 2 years from now. Less. We're going to have an earlier convention in 2028 in February in El Paso, Texas. So it's a year and, a year and 8 months or something, year and 9 months. So it's quicker than you might think. For the next presidential campaign. And the D's and R's, after the midterms are over in November, they're going to start announcing their candidacies, I think.
Yeah, I really hope the Libertarian Party goes with something different. I like Joe, but I'd rather see us go in a different direction. I don't see. I mean, she couldn't get traction during the most tyranny we ever had. I just don't think it's going to do anything for us. I don't. I just don't. I really hope it doesn't go in that direction.
The one thing you can say good about her campaign was she did better than any regular citizen candidate that we've ever had. We've had these political people that were known politically that did a little bit better, like Gary Johnson did quite well, and we also had Bob Barr, and we had, and then we had, that was primarily those guys. Ron Paul way back when he was ran for our candidacy. But some of our just average citizen candidates that nobody's ever heard of, Joe did better than any of them. She did better than Ed Clark. She did better than Michael Badnarik. She did better than Harry Brown. So that was good. That was good. Mm-hmm. It maybe shows that there's a larger number of like base libertarian voters, and they just didn't come out in 2024 for us because the party wasn't even behind Chase Oliver. Mm-hmm. That was part of it. He would have gotten more votes if the party was completely behind him.
Yeah, I don't. I guess like I said, we'll see how things.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Do you think? I guess there's obviously independents out there in Texas, and some might lean towards one way or the other. What would you say to the ones that might lean towards would have voted for the other Republican instead of Paxton?
Well, I would say to them that if you like Senator Cornyn, I mean, I'm not going to say that I also didn't agree much with Cornyn. Right. But the point is, Cornyn's dignity and I don't know, he was a more traditional politician, someone that was I don't believe he like was on the grift, or didn't become rich in politics. He just was a real workhorse actually for a long, long time. He was a lawyer. He's a very conservative person, and he just wasn't made for these times. Is what it was. He was like just prostrated himself to try to get Trump's endorsement, and it just was a waste of time. He just like really damaged his own dignity there, and it's a real shame. So he's probably not going to endorse anyone. So it's just a matter of like others in the Republican Party saying, you might not want to vote for Talarico because he's like one of those evil Democrats and the other tribe, But there is this just you can cast a protest vote for the Libertarian candidate, and certainly show that the Republicans, you just can't nominate a candidate like Paxton and expect to like expand beyond your deep red meat MAGA base, and they don't have enough voters just in the deep red meat MAGA base to win an election. I don't think. I hope not. Yeah.
So then what would you the same thing to the independents that would lean more towards the Democrats who maybe can't get elected or maybe might get elected this time because the other guy's so bad. What would you say to the voters on that side? What would your pitch be to get them to vote Brown?
Yeah, see, that's a tougher bunch. The Democrats can sense, can feel the blood on the Republican side this time, and they'll put up with most anything to win that. They'd probably even rather, if they could win the governorship. I don't believe they will, but if they could do that, that would really be the crowning achievement here. But for James Talarico to win that Senate seat, they deserve to have the Republicans deserve to have James Talarico win that Senate seat. They did not. They nominated the wrong candidate. They have a terrible president. They have terrible policies that are just ruining the country. They deserve to lose this election. It's one of these things where they say the good news is the Republicans have lost control of Congress. The bad news is the Democrats have gained control of Congress. That's the problem that we're facing. And what's funny is about Talarico, I believe if he's elected, his first 2 years in office will actually be pretty good if he's in opposition to Trump. When he's like there if the Democrats gain control there and he's in the opponent, they're opposing Trump. But after that, if a Democrat's elected president, that would be terrible, because then all the Democrats, him and all the other ones, are just going to be in lockstep in favor of whatever left-wing socialist program the Democrats are, like President Newsom or President Cortez or President Whitmer or any of them are going to propose. The Democrats are even better at falling in line than the Republicans are, and they're pretty in line.
Yeah. My stomach did a knot when you just said Newsom's name as president.
The
holy hell out of me.
Yeah, you know him well, and you're likely to get some other crackpot as governor pretty soon, too.
Man, good Lord. Yeah, but Sarah, man, good God, man, we need some help over here.
Oh, I know. He's like a candidate who's qualified, but he's just wrong.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's not like he's going to, be some kind of nutball that doesn't know what he's doing, but what he is doing is bad. That's the problem. Yeah. But he might be the guy, unfortunately, just like the Texans might have to suffer through Greg Abbott again.
Man, how did the gerrymandering end up going over there? Because I talked to somebody else. I had somebody on just talking about gerrymandering in particular, talking about how, gerrymandering can work for, like, say, the Republicans, but by gerrymandering, what they do is they put more Republican voters in a place where they didn't have Republican voters, so it kind of thins it out in another area where they had a bigger majority. So in a time like right now where they're on the ropes, it could actually work against them because they thinned out their majority in some places. Do you see it that way?
There is, yeah. It very well could backfire, because what happened in Texas was they had a very overwhelming shift of Hispanic voters to Trump and the Republicans in 2024, and he squandered that completely. So they were using those vote totals, like in South Texas, which is heavily Hispanic, to change some of the districts to elect more Republicans down there. But these are not going to be Republicans anymore. They're going to go back to the Democrats because they hate Trump and his immigration policies. In theory, they agree with the immigration policies, but nobody agrees with how it's being carried out, like the police state, with the way ICE is behaving. And they're doing more of that in Texas than a lot of places, because it's such a big state and it's real easy to round people up here and it's near the border and all this. And so they're going to lose some of the seats that they thought they were going to win. They're not going to get those extra 5 seats. I mean, they might not get any of them. Who knows? and other ones were weakened. Like you said, some of the incumbents were weakened, who might have thought they were going to win with 60-some%. It might get pretty close in
Yeah.
some of those elections. The Democrats could feel blood, sense blood in some of those. These districts are ridiculous too. I mean, I live in Austin, and we were gerrymandered into a district that goes 300 miles away to Midland and Odessa out in West Texas, and the people out there are just as upset as people here about being in the same district because the interests are absolutely different. You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing. We have nothing to do with Midland and Odessa here in town. Here, this is a urban suburban area here, and the Midland and Odessa people really hate Austin, so it's not going to
Right.
work out too well.
Yeah. Man, that's some wild politics is wild. But I'm glad you mentioned the like immigration and stuff because a lot of people, I mean, I'd say the vast majority of Americans want border security and stuff. And, libertarians by and large were pretty much, I think it's a spectrum. Some people look at
Mhm.
it a little bit different, but, our national plank says open borders. And I think that scares the shit out of some people who aren't libertarians or, people around the country. And I really don't know if I don't know if that term really fits because a lot of libertarians are minarchists, not anarchists. We
Mhm.
believe in government laws and some regulations
Yeah.
to a minimum. Where's your stance on that?
Right. Well, see, open borders I'm not for open borders because that implies no one's going to check anybody coming in, that we wouldn't have any like border checkpoints or anything like that. That's something that if you read Jacob Hornberger, that's something that he favors. He says it should be just as easy to go between countries as it is to go between states. And that's not going to cut it. And from my point of view, that's mostly because of the national security implications of that. You can imagine somebody just waltzing across the border with a suitcase nuke or something to that effect.
Mm.
Customs are important, like to stop somebody from bringing in like some poisonous fungus that's going to like destroy all our crops or something. They actually caught some Chinese woman doing that at New York and at customs. So we got to have people checking those kind of things out. But what we don't need, we don't need the border patrol 100 miles inland.
No.
No, and what we do need them at the border and at all the ports of entry, like at the airports and at the ports and everything, but nowhere else, in my opinion. What we need is to make it easier for people to come to this country legally. That's the thing, and that's been the problem. It's almost impossible for someone to come here legally now. There are methods, but right now, even the legal methods, they're ignoring the applications. They just throw them in a drawer. They take the money for the application, and they just don't even pay any attention to them. They're like 10, 20 years backlog. You can't blame people who want to come here from just trying to come in like they did under the Biden administration, which was a disaster because they for some reason weren't allowed to like come to use a paved road and go to a building with U.S. government employees. They like swim across a river and climb under a fence and crawl through the desert. That's absolutely ridiculous. And they were all congregating in these Texas border towns. Of course, people were upset about that. They should have been able to come to an actual border checkpoint, register, identify themselves, and to be checked out to make sure they're not some kind of a criminal or something. And then they should be able to like be admitted and be able to work from day one. They shouldn't be treated the way they are. But because of the way Biden did it, he just screwed the whole thing up and made it even worse than it had ever been before. But we need to go back to this Ellis Island method where people used to be able just to come. It was Ellis Island back then, like the main point. But there were other parts of the country, like even
Yeah.
Galveston, Texas, and New Orleans, where people were coming in back in those days.
Up by San Francisco too. I can't remember the name of that place up there too.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, because of course people from that part of the world would come up there. But yeah, that's the problem. They aren't doing that. They aren't going to. They don't have that method where people would just come without invitation, shall we say, but document themselves. They have a passport from their country. You can know who they are, and then we should welcome people that are coming here to make a better life for themselves and their families, to work and all. Most people do that who are coming here as immigrants. They're not here to be on welfare, and they're not here to cause trouble. In fact, immigrants of both legal and illegal have a lower crime rate than the native-born Americans. I'd love to see what the MAGA crime rate is. Actually, those people are probably way up there on like domestic abuse and bar fights, things like that. Seems like to me.
Yeah.
So So, it's like the problem is now you can't even have any kind of immigration reform now because there's such this vehement group of people that are going to try to block absolutely anything you do to try to make it easier on anybody. And there's the MAGA people approve of how people are being abused, how longtime immigrants are being abused by ICE and everything, and stuck in these facilities when they don't even have a criminal record or anything. It's just absolutely insane. That's why I am one of those that wants to abolish ICE. But again, as I said before, I would keep Customs and Border Protection at the border, at the airports, at the ports, but not anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, see that to me that seems reasonable. See, that sounds better. I think
Mhm.
most Americans could get behind something like that. And I wonder, when I see the national platform, do you think it should be maybe the word open borders should be taken out and have it phrased a little bit more like what you stated?
Yeah,
Uh,
it doesn't say the word open borders, but it
doesn't I
implies
thought
that the
it
way
did.
it's phrased, like about the free movement of people across borders.
Yeah,
We were trying to change the wording. The current wording says human as well as financial capital. It may sound like we were in favor of human trafficking or something. The way it was phrased, we were trying to change that because I was chairman of the platform committee at the recent convention. But sadly, we had all kinds of great proposals, but the convention didn't have a chance to hear them.
uh-huh.
So. We have some great planks there that look at the platform committee report because I do want to promote some of that wasn't passed, like a digital privacy plank, an AI data center plank, and some of the ones where we changed some of our wording to not sound as that sounded a little bit nutty there about the human capital part. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's very odd.
yeah,
But it does imply there was one of those about abolishing the Department of Homeland Security and things like that. But libertarians do go all out on this about abolishing government departments. But
yeah,
remember, when libertarians say we don't want the government to do certain things, doesn't mean we don't want it to be done at all.
right.
That's the big difference. And maybe that's not the case with like Homeland Security, because usually the government does that. But most any other department, like domestic departments, it doesn't mean we don't want people to be educated or we don't want people to have housing or we don't want people to have transportation. We just think
Yeah,
the government's the worst way of delivering that. And a
yeah,
lot of what Homeland Security does is in the same category, when we're not talking about the actual military defense of the country.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. I'll have to read that. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I think there's a lot of things that we could do to make the regular person out there when they look up what we're about understand it a little bit better.
Mhm.
And not, I consider myself pretty damn radical,
Mhm.
but I don't try to sell my most radical ideas to people. I realize they're radical. I try to keep those, their wish list.
Mhm.
Certain things that we really need to focus on,
Right.
and those are the kind of things that we talked about here today. And that's why I wanted to get you on here so we can get that message out there while there's all this controversy going on about Paxton and everything, and
Mhm.
just hopefully get some attention for you or your campaign, and we can make a difference there in Texas. And at the
Well, I
very
sure
least,
hope so.
people talking about libertarian ideas.
Well, I sure hope so because I and my supporters keep like whenever there's any discussion of the race, oh no, what are we going to do with Paxton being the Republican candidate? There's a third choice. There's a third choice, and they have the link to my Twitter or my Facebook or whatever the case may be. And as long as this my supporters are trying to get the word out, and I do myself, like learn of the alternatives and all.
Yeah,
But I am a radical libertarian candidate. It's just that obviously there are some issues that are important right now, and some aren't as quite as important. But I'm certainly not going to hide my platform. But you're right.
right.
When we start talking about abolishing departments, some departments easily could be abolished, and people aren't going to be mind as much. But otherwise, I think it's important sometimes, not in every case, but sometimes to like have your most radical position because if you propose something that's barely anything, like some little fudgy little thing, you're not going to get anything. But if you say, for example, I said, let's legalize all drugs. And the people say, well, that's a little radical. How about we just do cannabis? Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
do that. But if you just say, well, let's like
right.
just ease some of the rules on cannabis or change the schedule or something, that's
Yeah,
barely anything. You probably won't get anything.
yeah,
If you just propose some little fudging little tiny change, but if you're
right.
proposing something radical, the compromise is to get what you really want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good negotiating skill. When you go in for a job, you always ask for more than you think you're going to get.
Sure, sure, exactly. Yeah.
So, can you think of anything else you want to tell the voters and give out your information, like where people can donate to your campaign or
Yes.
follow you on X and stuff or Facebook?
Sure. Go to my website at tedbrown.org. It's a real easy one. And then tedbrown.org /donate is you can find it on the website about donating to the campaign. Every bit of the dollars will be used to promote liberty. Follow me on Twitter at Ted Brown Liberty. I'm very active there. And my Facebook is Ted Brown, Libertarian for U.S. Senator from Texas. There's a lot of good stuff in there as well. And just promote those listeners to Shawn's show. Please promote those Twitter and Facebook pages so more people will follow them. And in fact, I've had a big surge in followers since the Paxton nomination. More people are checking me out, so I definitely am happy about that.
Yeah, I would guess so. Like I mentioned before we got started, one of the old interviews with Ted, it doubled in listens over the last week, and
It's
that
great.
from months ago. So that obviously people are interested in looking for something different, and I hope we give them that choice here. You never know, the right clip might go viral, and that'd be great.
That would be incredible, because the more people that see that there's an alternative, that's the key. Just knowing that it's out there, because otherwise people are just like saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm politically homeless, and what am
Yeah,
I going to do with these candidates that I don't agree with?" But there is another. As,
yeah,
as they say, there is another. We just have to be able to get that word out, and it's very difficult in this environment because with the team red, team blue, everybody just thinking that's all there is.
yeah. I hope you get the protest vote, but I also hope you get votes of people who are tired of voting against things. Vote for
Yes.
something you actually believe in. You believe in small government and leaving people alone and keep
Mm-hmm.
money in your pocket. Ted's your man.
That's it. And remember, you don't have to agree with me on everything, because
Yeah,
really, how much does everybody agree with the Democratic platform or the Republican platform?
yeah,
They just do it because it's their team. Even if you
yeah,
just agree with me on a couple of major issues that the other guys aren't fulfilling your viewpoint, that's the reason to vote for me and for other libertarians.
yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's well, I wish you luck, and as it gets closer, to November, love to have you back on and see how things are going. Hopefully you start showing up at polls and that kind of thing and all that good stuff.
I would love to be on again. Thanks a lot, Shawn.
Yep, glad to have you, and thanks to everybody for listening to the Liberty Blues today. Please share it with your friends. Again, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can follow me on X at Mad Shawn Osborne. I believe that's my YouTube channel too, is at Mad Shawn Osborne, and just Shawn Osborne. You can see the podcast there. It's available on Spotify and all that good stuff. So please leave a rating, review, that kind of stuff. And listen to my latest album. It's called Free People. And play it at your Liberty events. Try to keep traditional American folk style music alive without a lot of the socialist kind of stuff that was in a lot of it back in the day. And there's a great playlist on Spotify called Indie-tarian where they support libertarian musicians. It's not all libertarian themed music. Some of it's just, music made by libertarians. So go pick out a few of the people from there, put them on your playlist, and help them out with the algorithms. It would be much appreciated. And we'll see you on the next episode of Liberty Blues.